Imagine a continent at a crossroads. Two nations, two leaders, two paths. One inspires hope, the other sparks frustration. President William Ruto of Kenya is pleading with Gen Z protesters, "Don't burn your country." In a surprising shift from his usual bold style, he's asking them to be part of the solution. But the question buzzing across Africa is, why do Africans love Traoré while Kenyan police are the ones shouting, "Enough is enough"? This isn't just a spark in the dark, it's a historic turning point. Let's dive into what's happening in Kenya and Burkina Faso to understand why Africa is choosing sides. In Burkina Faso, a young president, Ibrahim Traoré, is shaking things up. He's rejected the IMF, rejected fear, and embraced trust in his people. His words are strong, his actions clear, and his leadership inspiring. Meanwhile, in Kenya, one of West Africa's most developed nations, the police, the very guardians of order, are taking to the streets. They're refusing to be tools of a broken system. This isn't just politics anymore. It's a clash between two visions of leadership, one that lifts people up and one that wears them down. Let's break it down with the facts. In July 2024, Nairobi, Kenya, saw thousands of paramilitary police chanting, "Enough is enough." Some even stripped off their uniforms on camera, quitting their roles as enforcers of a government that ignores its people. For the first time in decades, law enforcement itself protested the system it served. Why? Inflation soared past 20%, the local currency tanked, and IMF loans forced the government to slash public spending. That meant cuts to police bonuses, education, and health care. The people's trust? Shattered. Now, picture this. At the same time in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré was at a community education fair in Kaya. No bodyguards, no fancy stage. Just him, standing with his people, saying, "We don't need loan conditions. We need living conditions." He rejected an IMF loan and called on his people to step up. The result? No protests, no police in the streets, just young volunteers fixing schools and teaching free classes. People cheer him as a hero. So what's the difference? Policy, leadership, or the trust of the people? Let's dig deeper. In Burkina Faso, Traoré connects because he's one of them. Not born rich, not educated abroad, not following foreign models. He entered politics with one weapon, his candor. When he said no to the IMF, Western media called him reckless. But to the people of Burkina Faso, it was courage. The first time in years someone dared to say no for them. He didn't promise raises or handouts. Instead, he promised to return land to farmers and trust the forgotten. His community talks aren't in air-conditioned halls or broadcast on shiny TV screens. He sits on the ground, listening to women speak of lost fields, children without schools, and jobless youth dreaming of leaving. In a world where politicians only show up during elections, a leader who walks into villages without cameras or scripts is rare. And here's the kicker. Traoré's love doesn't stop at Burkina Faso's borders. People in Mali, Niger, Senegal, even Nigeria call him son of the mainland, the second Thomas Sankara, or simply the one who speaks for us. Have you ever loved a leader not for their promises, but for their silence, their willingness to do the hard thing? If someone stood up and said, "We're not poor, we've just lost our trust," would you stand with them? Now, let's flip to Kenya, where the response to crisis couldn't be more different. When police started protesting, it wasn't just a strike for rights. It was a cry from the heart of the system. These weren't poor farmers or jobless youth. They were symbols of state power. But caught in a cycle of debt, budget cuts, and rising costs, even they became victims. Between 2021 and 2024, Kenya borrowed over $9 billion from the IMF and global institutions. The catch? Austerity. Cuts to public budgets, higher taxes, and slashed subsidies for education and health. Police allowances vanished, and salaries were delayed by up to 3 months. The result? The police lost faith in the government, and the people lost faith in both. In a viral video on Kenyan social media, a police officer rips off his badge and says, "I didn't betray my country. I just can't serve a system with no humanity." This shook Kenya's middle class, not because of unrest, but because it exposed a truth the government avoids. The system is broken from within. What happens when the very forces meant to protect justice start doubting it? Can a country survive when even those paid to believe lose faith? Let's put Kenya and Burkina Faso side by side. Not to compare, but to understand. Both face public debt, rising costs, and eroded trust. But their leaders' responses? Night and day. In Burkina Faso, when faced with a budget shortfall, Traoré didn't turn to IMF austerity. He invited everyone, village chiefs, students, women traders, to a national forum to build a self-sustaining economy. He asked, if you were president, what would you cut to protect food and schools? This sparked consensus and responsibility. People donated land, built infrastructure, and protected power stations from vandalism. In Kenya, the government followed the IMF's playbook, slashed salaries, raised taxes, delayed payments, and sent security forces to maintain order. No public dialogue, no transparency, just orders. The result? The police, hit hard by these policies, were the first to protest. The people saw their protectors struggling and realized, if the police are suffering, who's left to stand up for us? One leader inspires collective action. The other hopes people endure in silence. If you were in charge, which path would you choose? Face your people or hide behind policies? It's not just about policy. It's about how leaders define service. In a crisis, people don't read IMF reports. They look into their leaders' eyes and ask, are you with me? Traoré wins without campaigning. His image isn't on billboards or LED screens, but his message is everywhere. I'm not a savior. I'm just the first to tell the truth. He pushes land transparency, returns resources to communities, and empowers youth through vocational programs. In contrast, many African leaders, including Kenya's, seem distant, speaking from palaces, offering no dialogue, no emotion. When crisis hits, people don't know who to trust because they don't know who their leader is beyond a face on TV. The biggest difference? Trust. Traoré's simplicity and fearlessness have created something money can't buy: natural trust. In a world of political games, is there still room for a leader who leads with truth and dignity? Do you believe an ordinary person, not a billionaire, not born to wealth, can change a nation? But just when hope was rising, a twist flipped everything. In Kenya, protests spread beyond police to students, nurses, and teachers, all united against a flawed system. Their anger isn't random. It's organized, targeting decades of dependency on foreign models. In Burkina Faso, it's not protest but action. Young people fixing farm tools, women baking bread to replace imports, students tutoring kids via radio. When people believe in a national goal, they build. When they doubt the system, they destroy. Which revolution lasts longer? Angry resistance or responsibility-driven awakening? In Burkina Faso, something incredible is happening. In just 6 months, society has become a recovery machine without government campaigns. In Kaya, farmers use homemade biofertilizers. In Bobo Dioulasso, students design low-cost clay homes, no imported concrete needed. In Ouagadougou, people clean, plant trees, and renovate schools with no state funding. Why? They believe the country belongs to them, and their leader is listening. In Kenya, the police protests sparked a broader movement. Civil society groups now run financial justice commissions, analyzing loans and questioning ministers online. Both nations are waking up, but differently. Burkina Faso builds. Kenya questions. Traoré's approach isn't a short-term wave. It's a long-term shift where people act because they know the government won't stop them. This is spreading to Mali, Niger, Chad, even Ghana, where Traoré's story inspires via radio, Facebook, and village talks. Can a country change with faith, not money? If you lived there, what's the first thing you do to rebuild? But as faith grew, fear crept in elsewhere. Just weeks after Traoré expanded land reforms, Western media claimed Burkina Faso was unstable and at risk. Credit agencies downgraded the country. Investment dried up, and banks faced transaction blocks. Then, universities lost international funding, accused of not meeting global standards. The people saw it for what it was: a move to crush independent thinking. But here's the real twist. Instead of collapsing, Burkina Faso fought back. Students at the University of Ouagadougou launched free engineering programs. In Kédougou, farmers taught kids farming, and accounting using local knowledge, not imported books. Education became a social movement, independent of budgets. When Kenya heard this, youth forums began asking, if Burkina Faso can teach itself, why do we wait for foreign scholarships? The biggest revolution isn't police protests or government collapse. It's education, once a tool of control, now a weapon of awakening. Can a blackboard and chalk outshine $1 billion bailout? If your child asks, can we teach ourselves, what would you say? Africa stands at a turning point. In Burkina Faso, people rebuild without orders. In Kenya, police speak without slogans. Faith is rising from simple things, lessons, notebooks, trust. The world may criticize, but it doesn't matter. When a mother teaches her child to love their country, when a student shares knowledge freely, that is the miracle of our time. They say every nation gets a moment of awakening. This might be Africa's. If you were Traoré, what would you pass to the next generation? If you could write Africa's new history, where would you start? Share one thing you do for yourself and for Africa in the comments below. Let's keep this fire burning.